Do you know what I find really heartening about all of this? And you could say this is a niche subject, you could say it's a subject that just involves all of us. But the very fact that you can fill out arenas of 9,000, 10,000 people who obviously have a thirst for knowledge in an accessible way. It's a big bit of a risk, isn't it? I mean, if you had said, you know, especially in your younger days, you have a choice between going to a music concert or seeing a professor lecture, which would you do?
Well, exactly. I mean, I think the heartening thing as well was the breadth of the audience, the families coming to see, you know, to talk about astronomy, talk about the origin of the universe and just be interested. I think you're right. It's not surprising because I think we've all been interested in these ideas. You know, we all ask, you know, how did all this come to be? How much of it is there? Is there life on other worlds? These are things that we all talk about. But the idea now that we're making progress in answering some of those questions, I think, is the exciting thing.
So a lot of young people, because I know you're always, always keen to encourage youngsters to be involved in science. And we were saying there, you know, look up at the stars, stop looking at your phones. I mean, how you get your children off your phones, I do not know, but that's what you say parents should be doing, is encouraging them to look at the stars and the planets. And
I mean, astronomy is one of those things anyone can do. You don't need binoculars or a telescope. You can look at the planets. You know, just knowing with your children, saying that bright thing. I mean, tonight actually the sky clears, you'll see Jupiter, and the idea that that bright little light in the sky is a planet with satellites around it. You can see them if you get into that, you can see them with a small telescope, so a very cheap telescope.
And there are apps and things now to help us.
Have you ever looked through the telescope?
Have I ever looked through one? Yeah, but not at the stars.
Yeah. But if you do look through a telescope, it's interesting. It's actually quite frightening. Because you actually see that things are living out there. They're moving, they are pulsating. And I remember the first time I did it, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm not sure I want to see what's going on up here. Because you like to think you're on your own, but when you look at that, you think maybe not.
It's a powerful thing, actually. Looking at something like Saturn, even this small telescope, you see the rings. And it looks like a child's drawing. And I think it's quite a powerful, sort of moving experience, actually, to realise those points of light are worlds. You know, and that there may be living things on some of those points of light.
You say people have so many questions to ask on your tours and on our Facebook. All the questions, as soon as we say you're on the show, in they come. Stacey's asking, what would be the most exciting scientific discovery in our lifetime?
Oh, I think the question, are we alone in the universe? We all think about that. And we've got serious missions now, going to Mars and going to some of the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, where we know there's water. We know there are oceans under the surface of some of those moons. And so the conditions we think that could support life are there. Well, we're going now. And I would love to see that answered, you know, no, we are not alone.
Do you subscribe to the theory that the moon landings were fake?
No, I mean, it's not even a theory, it's nonsense. Actually, Buzz Aldrin, if you look on the front of the book, there's a quote by Buzz, who I've met several times, and I can tell you that if you say that to Buzz Aldrin, he just punches you in the face.
Buzz Aldrin says your book is inspirational. This is a journey through the cosmos. You and Jeff Forshaw.
Well, one of the things that you're doing, again, in conjunction with the BBC, you continue to make science accessible. And the BBC are taking the old brand, when Ruth and I were kids, of Tomorrow's World, which looked at all sorts of, you know, televisions in your car, mobile phones in your car, all this sort of thing, which we used
crazy stuff.
We used to think in 1970s, oh, I could think of it.
Imagine.
Amazing. I know. How do you take that brand forward?
Well, the idea that the BBC had, and it was kind of an idea that came out of conversations, was that there's lots of institutions in Britain, like the museums and the universities, and lots of things with things to say, organisations with things to say. And the BBC is, well, what is it? It's a bridge to people. That's its job. It exists because of that. So the real idea of the Tomorrow's World is to bring all these, like, the museums and the universities together and try and work with the BBC to make this knowledge more accessible. And that's the basic underlying idea. So it is a season of programmes, but more than that, it's this radical idea of getting the institutions of the country to work together in the interests of the country.
Well, that amazes me. I agree with you, because no matter what futuristic ideas there are for this country, there is total resistance, no matter what it is. They were talking about battery cars last night, resistance, new rail lines, resistance, electric rail lines, new runways, resistance
to the future.
Do you despair sometimes?
Yeah, because our future, we have the power and the knowledge to choose our future now. So it is in our hands as a civilization. So we have to choose what we want to do. And I think that process is not. It's not fast enough for me. We could live in a much better world if we made the right choices.
So I agree with you. Some people
would
love to have lived in Victorian times or whatever. I would prefer to live in Star Trek times.
Yeah, Star Trek is a utopia.
He's got the outfit, Brian.
It's a utopian place.
Yes.
You know, Victorian times, there's no penicillin, for example, no antibiotics. Yeah. So going back to the past is certainly not something I would like
you're
to
so
do.
exciting. Thanks for making it all so interesting.
Very interesting.
Thank
Look
you very
forward
much
to
indeed.
tomorrow's world. And as we said, Universal, A Journey Through the Cosmos by Brian is out now. Buzz Aldrin says it's inspirational.
Give me that. I want to be inspired. Okay, right.
Thanks,
Lovely.
Brian.
Thanks,
Good to
Brian.
see you.